Maria Josefa Gabriela Carina de Silang, commonly known as Gabriela Silang, is a Filipino heroine who bravely led the fight against the Spaniards in Vigan, Ilocos Sur in the 1760s. She took over the fight for freedom after her husband Diego Silang was betrayed by a friend and killed by order of the church. What makes her story more amazing is that she was the first Filipina that led a revolution against Spain. At first, she was ignored because people back then didn't believe in the strength and capabilities of female warriors. However, as stories about her grew and spread, she became fearsome and the Spaniards were forced to acknowledge her. Later on, due to the rebellion, she became an even bigger threat to them and so they planned to assassinate her. On September 20, 1763, Silang and her troops were executed by hanging in Vigan Central Plaza. What it meant to be a mother, a partner, and a Filipina was redefined by Gabriela Silang. She was a Filipina who stretched the boundaries of what it meant to be a woman, paving the way for independence. She is regarded as a strong Filipina who inspired many other heroes even up to this generation.
Gabriela Silang was able to single-handedly dismantle the idea that women are only victims of war by becoming the first female leader of the Philippine Revolution against the Spaniards. She earned herself the title of Generala, meaning woman general, because of her fighting spirit and determination that she saw in her husband. The great Filipina heroine became the embodiment of fearlessness and undying love for the country. Although her revolt failed when she was captured and executed along with her troops in 1763, she was still able to lead them and continuously fight for the independence of the country for 4 straight months. Gabriela Silang's desire for justice is what drove her to continue her husband's rebellion. She brought the brilliance and serenity of a female warrior to battle. It was through her heroic actions and deeds that inspired the creation of the country's leading women's alliance, the General Assembly binding women for reforms, integrity, equality, leadership, and action, or simply Gabriela. This organization aims to resolve the struggle for liberation of all oppressed Filipino women. Up until these times, Gabriela's actions still encourage women to fight for justice and equality. With this, it is evident that Gabriela's life has flourished and is still flourishing within the brave women of the country.
What are the factors that help this person's journey towards flourishing? Undoubtedly, Gabriela Silang had an immense contribution to the success of Philippine Revolution. The continuity of her personal flourishing blossomed the moment she became the first Filipina female leader. The factors that contributed to her journey towards flourishing are her love for her husband, Diego Silang, engagements for the country, and bravery. In terms of her love for her husband, after his assassination, Gabriela vowed to avenge his death and continue the fight. As she took her husband's place and carried it with a grieving yet determined heart, she flourished to be an efficient leader of the rebellion. In terms of her engagements with the country, as she moved into the Abra Mountains to establish a new base and reassemble her troops to fight the Spanish, Gabriela's personal mission for the country's liberation has been achieved little by little, leading also to her personal flourishing. And lastly, her bravery. Despite her time of leadership might have been brief, her bravery and courage brought a lasting example to the people, specifically to the women of the Philippines. For me, the pursuit of influencing or inspiring others through her bravery has been the biggest factor in her journey towards flourishing.
What are the factors that hinder or challenge this person's journey towards flourishing? I believe that Gabriela Silang's journey towards flourishing is much challenging because of her social status and that of her husband. Gabriela Silang is such a powerful woman. She is the daughter of an Ilocano peasant and it plays an important factor why she got married to a wealthy man at the age of 20. Gabriela Silang don't let their low social status to hinder her journey towards flourishing. After 3 years, she left her first marriage and later on got married with Diego Silang at the age of 27. They both led the revolution and many uprisings to fight colonialism. After the death of her husband, it seems like another barrier and another hindrances. However, instead of grieving and crying, she led the resistance that her husband left her. I believe that before she was executed, she flourished together with fellow Filipino bravely fighting for our country, and she will always remember as Joan of Arc of Ilocandia.
So what we can understand about the self in Gabriela Silang is that one, it can be molded by the circumstances that one is born into, and two, it is not restricted by gender roles. For the first argument, this is the case for Gabriela Silang was born in a time where women aren't as privileged as they currently are. There was no one to fight for her rights, and as a woman, or a law to protect it. She was born around the Spanish colonial period, therefore life was obviously not easy. So one may infer that she had to learn to become mature at a faster rate and develop an identity that would ensure her survival. We may not know her personality to the fullest extent, but we can assume, based on her reputation as recorded in history, that the core foundations of herself revolves on her being strong, independent, and decisive. As for the second argument regarding the restriction by gender roles, Gabriela Silang is basically solid evidence that the identity of a leader and a fighter is not limited to a single gender. She took up the role of her late husband even though she could have passed on leadership to someone else. Her strong identity may have influenced her in taking responsibility over the movement even though she could have depended on how women were viewed and what roles were designated to them during the Spanish period. But then, without her making such a brave decision to be commander of a rebellion, we wouldn't have a strong female model that would have inspired women to advocate for women's rights and issues, and even a party list named in her honor. Thank you for listening to our presentation.